All right, Celtics fans, let's get into it. Because what's happening behind the scenes with Jason Tatum might be way more serious than anyone is letting on. While the headlines have moved on and most people are focusing on game stats and highlight reels, there's something that could completely shift how we see Boston's current playoff journey, and that's Tatum's wrist. It all started in the very first game of the postseason. Jason Tatum took a hard knock and ended up with a bone bruise on his shooting wrist. Now, at first, it didn't seem like that big of a deal. He sat out the second game against the Orlando Magic, which raised a few eyebrows. But when he came back, wrist wrapped tight and all, he looked every bit the All-NBA forward we know. The guy came out swinging. Over the 4 games against Orlando, he averaged over 31 points, grabbed more than 11 rebounds a night, and still managed 5+ assists per game. From downtown, he was hitting over 36% of his shots. And from inside the arc, he was nailing half of them. Those are elite numbers for anyone, let alone a player supposedly dealing with a wrist injury. Naturally, that performance pushed the conversation about his wrist way into the background. Everyone just assumed Tatum had shaken it off, that whatever pain he was feeling had either subsided or he was managing it fine. But here's the catch. Bone bruises are notoriously stubborn. They don't heal quickly. In fact, they linger. And even if a player looks fine on the court, they might be dealing with discomfort every single time they shoot, pass, or even take contact. These kinds of injuries don't go away overnight, and if a player tries to push through, it can quietly get worse without anyone really noticing. Fast forward to the Eastern Conference semifinals, and suddenly the numbers don't lie. Tatum is not the same player he was just a few days ago. Against the New York Knicks through the first 2 games, his production has dropped off a cliff. He's averaging just 18 points per game. That's a huge drop from the 30+ he was putting up earlier. Sure, he's still crashing the boards and getting assists, with 15 rebounds and 5.5 assists per night. But let's be honest, we know what Tatum is capable of. And this isn't it. The real red flag? His shooting efficiency. From deep, he's barely making 25% of his threes. Inside the arc, just a shade over 31%. Those are tough numbers to look at when you're talking about a guy who's supposed to be leading your team on a deep playoff run. And look, every player goes through slumps. Shots don't fall, defenses clamp down, it happens, but this feels like more than just a cold streak. You don't go from dropping 30 every night to barely scratching 20 unless something's up, and all signs point back to that wrist. Let's really think about it. Tatum's wrist was already banged up, and now he's playing every other night, going up against one of the most physical, defensively aggressive teams in the league. The Knicks are no joke. They've got size, they've got strength, and they don't give you an inch. For someone who relies so much on finesse, rhythm, and timing in his game, dealing with pain in his shooting wrist is a huge problem. It messes with your shot mechanics, your confidence, even your decision making. It's not just about how much pain you can take, it's about what that pain does to the way you play. And honestly, you can see it. Tatum doesn't look like himself out there. He's hesitating. He's not attacking the basket the same way. He's passing up shots he'd normally take in a heartbeat. That killer instinct, that give me the ball and get out of the way energy we've come to expect from him, is just not there right now. And that tells you this isn't just mental. Something physical is holding him back. And it sure feels like that wrist is finally catching up to him. Now the big question, should he keep playing through it? That's the kind of call that can make or break a season. On one hand, the Celtics need Tatum on the floor. He's the cornerstone, the franchise guy. Even at less than 100%, he draws attention, spaces the floor, and creates opportunities for others. But on the other hand, if he's clearly limited and his presence is doing more harm than good, both to the team's rhythm and to his own long-term health, maybe it's time to seriously consider giving him some rest. Because let's face it, a compromised superstar might not be enough to carry you through a brutal playoff series against a team like the Knicks. And it's not just about this series. Boston has championship aspirations. Everything this season has been building toward that one goal, bringing another banner to the Garden. But if Tatum keeps pushing through this injury and it gets worse, we could be looking at a long-term problem. One that stretches beyond this year and into the next. That's the nightmare scenario. A lingering wrist issue for a player whose game depends so much on touch, feel, and control. That's something that could derail not just this playoff run, but the momentum of the franchise altogether. Right now, Celtics fans are frustrated, and rightfully so. They're looking for answers, trying to understand how a team that looked so dominant just a few weeks ago is suddenly stumbling. The defense isn't clicking the same way, the offense feels out of sync, and their best player looks like a shadow of himself. And while it's easy to point fingers at the coaching, at the rotations, at the role players, the truth might be simpler and more unfortunate. This could all go back to that one moment in Game 1 when Tatum landed wrong and hurt his wrist. Nobody expected that injury to be the turning point. At the time, it felt like a bump in the road, something he'd play through like so many stars do in the playoffs. But now it feels like the ripple effects are being felt throughout the entire team. And unless something changes, either Tatum miraculously heals up or the team adjusts around his limitations, this injury might end up defining the Celtics' entire postseason story. And this is where things get complicated for the Boston Celtics. Because when your best player is battling through pain and clearly not at 100%, the pressure on everyone else skyrockets. You start to see cracks that weren't visible before. Jaylen Brown, for instance, now has to carry a heavier offensive load, often trying to force the issue or take contested shots that would normally be Tatum's responsibility. The spacing gets tighter, the ball movement slows down, and the entire offensive rhythm suffers. The Celtics, a team built on unselfish play and flow, suddenly look disjointed, hesitant, and unsure. That's what happens when your offensive anchor is compromised. And let's be real, teams like the Knicks, they smell blood. They're not going to give you an inch. The moment they realize that Tatum isn't attacking with the same confidence, they pounce. They crowd him, dare him to shoot, and shift their entire defensive strategy to shut down everyone else. It becomes a psychological game as much as a physical one. Every missed shot adds pressure. Every turnover chips away at the Celtics' belief that they can control the series. And worst of all, it allows the Knicks to play with a swagger that makes them even harder to stop. But let's not forget who Tatum is. We're talking about a guy who's delivered time and time again in big moments. The Game 7 masterpiece against the Sixers last year. The 50-point nights, the cold-blooded game winners. He's earned his stripes as a big game player. That's what makes this situation so frustrating, because you know he's capable of turning it around. The question is whether his body will let him, and that's something no amount of grit or toughness can fully overcome. The human body has limits, even for the best of the best. Behind the scenes, you can bet the Celtics medical staff is working overtime. Treatments, therapy sessions, pain management, they're doing everything they can to get him as close to functional as possible. But in the playoffs, there's no time. You don't get a week off to recover. It's every other night, maximum intensity, and no room for hesitation. That's the brutal nature of postseason basketball. And in that environment, even the smallest physical limitation can snowball into a major issue. Then there's the mental toll. For a player like Tatum, who holds himself to a ridiculously high standard, struggling on the court while dealing with pain must be a nightmare. The frustration builds. You want to be the guy, but your body isn't cooperating. You start overthinking. Shots that used to feel automatic now feel forced. You question your timing, your balance, your touch. It's a slippery slope, and the playoffs don't wait for anyone to get their confidence back. What makes it even tougher is the lack of clarity. The team hasn't come out and given a detailed update on Tatum's wrist. Everything is vague, adds day to day, managing through discomfort. No structural damage, but we've seen this movie before. Sometimes the injury report doesn't tell the whole story. Sometimes what looks like a minor issue becomes the reason a title contending team comes up short. And right now that feels like a very real possibility for Boston. The fan base is feeling it too. You can see it in the energy inside TD Garden. It's not the usual roar of confidence. There's a nervous tension, a feeling that something's not quite right. Fans are watching Tatum closely, holding their breath every time he rises for a jumper or takes contact in the lane. Everyone's hoping for a breakout game, a sign that he's back. But so far, that moment hasn't come. And the longer it takes, the harder it gets. Not just physically, but emotionally. Momentum is everything in the playoffs. And right now, it's slipping away. And let's not ignore how this affects the locker room. Teammates know when someone's hurt. They see the ice packs, the grimaces, the minutes in the training room. They know Tatum is battling through it, but they also know the stakes. There's no time for excuses. Everyone's job is on the line. In the playoffs, and when your leader is struggling, it can either bring the group closer together or start to unravel things. Leaders like Marcus Smart and Al Horford play a huge role in keeping everyone locked in. But even the best leadership can't fully compensate for your top scorer being off his game. Coaching adjustments can only go so far. Joe Mazzulla can tweak rotations, draw up new sets, or try to shift the defensive matchups, but none of that matters if Tatum can't be himself. You can't game plan your way out of your best player being limited. That's just the harsh reality. And at this level, against this kind of opponent, any weakness gets exposed fast. Now, all eyes turn to how the Celtics respond. Do they try to push Tatum harder, hoping he'll break through the pain? Do they scale back his minutes and rely on the depth of the roster to carry the load? Or do they make the tough call and sit him out, even for just one game, to try and reset things physically and mentally? There's no perfect answer. Every option comes with risk. Sit him, and you might fall further behind in the series. Play him, and he might aggravate the injury to the point where it ends his postseason entirely. It's a brutal situation, but it's also a defining moment. This is where you find out what kind of team Boston really is. Can they rally around adversity? Can they adapt when their star is compromised? Can someone else step up and deliver a game-changing performance when it's needed most? These are the questions that get answered in the playoffs, not in the regular season, not in training camp, but right now under the brightest lights and the highest stakes. And for Tatum, this might be one of the most important stretches of his career, not just because of the numbers, but because of how he handles this adversity. Every superstar hits a wall at some point. An injury, a slump, a tough matchup. What separates the good from the great is how they respond. Do they fade? Or do they find another gear, another way to impact the game, even when things aren't going their way? That's the challenge in front of Tatum right now. And everyone in Boston is watching to see how he answers. If the wrist is truly affecting him this much, then no one can fault the effort he's giving. Playing through pain, trying to carry a franchise on your back, that takes guts. But at some point, the team has to protect him from himself. The Celtics need to be smart. Not just for this series, but for the future. Because Tatum isn't just their present. He's their future. And pushing him too far now could cost them much more than one playoff series. Still, you can never count out a player like him. We've seen Tatum bounce back before. We've seen him silence the doubters, shut up the critics, and deliver when it matters most. And even now, when things look bleak, there's always a chance he flips the switch. One big performance, one signature game, and the entire narrative changes. That's the beauty and the cruelty of playoff basketball. Everything can change in a single night. The Celtics are hoping that night comes soon. Because if it doesn't this season, a season filled with promise, dominance, and championship dreams could be derailed by one painful twist of the wrist. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The NBA has confirmed the cancellation of the second game between the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks, which took place yesterday. This announcement has taken the basketball world by surprise, as both teams were gearing up for what promised to be a high-intensity match filled with anticipation. Fans of both sides, eager to witness a competitive clash, were left in limbo after the unexpected news. The reason behind the cancellation remains a matter of considerable speculation. With the ongoing dynamics of a highly competitive season, any disruption in the schedule raises questions about the league's handling of unforeseen circumstances. The Celtics and Knicks, two of the most storied franchises in NBA history, were primed for a crucial contest that could have significant implications for both teams in terms of playoff positioning. The cancellation casts a shadow over what could have been a game that altered the landscape of the Eastern Conference. The league has yet to provide specific details on why the game was called off, but such decisions are typically made for reasons ranging from player safety, facility issues, to health concerns that may impact the integrity of the game. In the past, similar disruptions have occurred due to a variety of factors, and the NBA has always acted swiftly to address them, prioritizing the well-being of players and staff, as well as the fairness of competition. For the Celtics, the cancellation is particularly frustrating as they have been on a strong run recently, looking to continue their momentum. The team had been playing with confidence and sharp execution, and this disruption might throw off their rhythm as they look ahead to their next matchups. The Knicks, on the other hand, were hoping to make the most of this game to secure an important victory that would keep them within striking distance of a coveted playoff spot. The absence of the game will undoubtedly impact their strategy and planning going forward. The fans, perhaps the most affected by this abrupt change, had eagerly awaited the showdown between these two teams. The rivalry between the Celtics and Knicks is one that spans decades, with each game carrying the weight of history. The energy and passion of both sets of fans bring to the arena are unmatched, and missing out on this matchup is a blow to the culture of the sport. Many fans took to social media, expressing their disappointment and frustration with the cancellation. While the details are still sparse, one thing is certain: the cancellation has left both teams and their supporters with a sense of uncertainty. The NBA's next steps will be critical, not only in managing the rescheduling of the game, but also in ensuring that the rest of the season runs smoothly despite this disruption. The league is known for its ability to adapt in times of crisis, and how they handle this situation will set the tone for the remainder of the season. In the meantime, both the Celtics and Knicks will have to adjust their focus and prepare for the next opportunity to get back on track. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.